Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, grab your phone off the nightstand, and see the exact same breaking news headline plastered across literally every single screen, news site, and social feed in the world. It's the ultimate global alert, the kind of news that just makes you hold your breath for a second. Vladimir Putin has died. Within minutes, and I mean minutes, an invisible, visceral shockwave rolls across the entire planet. We're talking global stock markets instantly plunging into the red, every major TV network scrambling to switch to rolling breaking news, intelligence agencies from Washington to Beijing going into absolute frantic overdrive, and military commanders, they're suddenly placed on high alert everywhere. Now, this isn't because Russia is just going to vanish off the map. It's because in that specific moment, no one on Earth can be completely certain what actually happens next. Okay, let's just get this out of the way right now and shatter the whole Hollywood dictator myth. You know, the movie trope where there's just one guy sitting alone in a dark room making every single decision. Yeah, the reality is vastly different. Russia relies on a massive, heavy bureaucratic machine. We're talking enormous ministries, powerful regional governors, millions of civil servants. So if the leader falls, the electricity doesn't suddenly shut off. The banks don't instantly lock their doors. Trains keep running. The daily grind of the government machine just keeps operating. But here's exactly why his sudden absence would be such a massive shock to that system. For over a quarter of a century, he hasn't just been a president. He's basically been the operating system of the entire Russian political ecosystem. Think about your laptop or your phone. Every single application depends on that central operating system, right? If one app crashes, you restart it. No big deal. But if the entire operating system suddenly just disappears, every single component is left flying blind, frantically trying to figure out what to do. And that is a much bigger, much more dangerous problem. Now, officially, Russia actually has clear constitutional rules for this exact scenario. On paper, it's pretty simple. If the president dies, the prime minister automatically steps up to become the acting president until new elections are held a few months later. Simple, right? No constitutional crisis. But, as we all know, constitutions only tell you who officially holds the title. The gritty, brutal reality of politics is what determines who actually wields the power. And this is where things get real. Behind the Kremlin's incredibly thick walls, you have a dense, highly competitive network of heavy hitters. The intelligence services, the military, regional governors, the billionaires. These groups certainly don't vanish just because the president does. Instead, a silent, intense scramble begins immediately behind closed doors. They're all looking at each other asking, so, who leads now? And in a high-stakes environment like that, choosing the wrong side can end your career or, honestly, much worse, literally overnight. But you know what? You will not see that scramble on television at all. The Kremlin values stability above almost everything else. So the immediate public response is going to be this meticulously crafted projection of absolute calm. You'll see TV presenters speaking in very measured tones, officials urging the public to stay calm, and probably historical documentaries playing on repeat. The unified message will be loud and clear. The government is in control. They know that domestic panic, or even just the appearance of chaos, is incredibly dangerous for a country with that much power. Which naturally brings us to the elephant in the room. It's the single most urgent, terrifying question that literally every government on Earth will be asking in those critical first hours. Who controls the world's largest nuclear arsenal? When the person at the very top is suddenly gone, who actually holds the keys to weapons that could, end civilization? Look, I want to reassure you here because the reality is so much less dramatic than the movies. There is no giant single red button sitting on a desk just waiting to be accidentally bumped. The system is explicitly designed for continuity and survival. Launching requires incredibly strict military procedures, heavily secure communication networks, and multiple overlapping layers of authorization through a fully intact chain of command. The military has literally spent decades preparing for this exact kind of scenario, so during a transition, stability and security, they are locked down tight. Okay, so the nuclear threat is managed. But what about the immediate, active conflict? Does the war in Ukraine just end? It's the assumption so many people instinctively jump to, isn't it? The leader dies, so the war must automatically be over. But international politics is rarely that simple. The grim reality we have to face is that massive, state-level wars do not simply halt just because one individual is gone. Think about the sheer scale of the machine keeping it running. Military commanders are still firmly at their posts. Massive, complex supply chains are still operating. Hundreds of thousands of troops remain deployed out in the field, and orders are still flowing through the established chain of command. In the immediate short term, the fighting almost certainly continues. It doesn't just turn off like a light switch. However, looking at the long game, whoever takes the reins next inherits an enormously expensive and taxing conflict, and they are going to hit a brutal crossroads. Do they double down on the current strategy, potentially escalating things even further, or do they shift gears toward pragmatic negotiations, deciding that, hey, relieving economic sanctions and rebuilding the Russian economy is actually the top priority? There is no guaranteed answer. The future of this conflict depends entirely on exactly which faction and which leader manages to successfully secure power when the dust settles. All right, let's fast forward about 48 hours. While things might look deceptively normal on the streets of Moscow, a massive shockwave is now violently crashing into the global economy. See, financial markets hate uncertainty way more than they hate bad news. And this is exactly why your own wallet is suddenly at risk. Russia isn't just a political player, it is an absolute titan when it comes to global exports. The very second there's doubt about who's in charge, traders panic. Fear of disrupted oil and natural gas sends global fuel prices spiking. Uncertainty over wheat and fertilizers? That means your grocery bill goes up. Key raw materials face sudden logistical nightmares, driving up global shipping costs and triggering inflation. It is exactly like dropping a heavy stone into a quiet lake. The initial splash happens in Moscow, but the economic ripples crash onto shores all over the world. And while the markets are freaking out, there is a frantic diplomatic scramble happening behind the scenes. Secure phone lines are burning up between Washington, Brussels, Beijing, and New Delhi. Every major capital is tracking satellite movements, analyzing every single scrap of intelligence they can find. And what's truly fascinating is that in this specific moment, intense global rivals like the US and China suddenly share one completely united goal: avoiding a crisis. Nobody wants a misunderstanding. Surprises right now are incredibly dangerous, and predictability is the ultimate prize. So, with all this global tension, the market shocks, the silent internal power struggles, it leads to one of the most common extreme scenarios people wonder about. Could Russia actually collapse? Could the entire state just shatter under the sudden vacuum of leadership? The short answer is probably not, because at the end of the day, history outlives leaders. Think about it. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, but Russia itself did not. Powerful figures absolutely shape history, for sure, but modern states are built with incredibly dense layers of administration, institutions, and societies that are specifically designed to survive leadership changes. So while the political competition might be fierce and the economic pressure intense, an instant, total collapse of the state in a matter of days, it's highly, highly unlikely. So if total collapse isn't the primary threat, what are we actually looking at? The real danger lies in the sheer uncertainty of what kind of Russia emerges from the dust. Analysts generally point to three potential futures here. First, continuity. A successor simply maintains the current trajectory with very little change. Second, gradual reform. A new, pragmatic leadership slowly starts improving foreign relations and relieving economic pressures. Or third, and this is the most volatile scenario, a prolonged, bitter struggle between those competing factions. The institutions will fight tooth and nail to prevent this, because instability benefits almost no one inside the Kremlin, but it remains a very real possibility. So, we return to you. The institutions will continue, the military will continue, but the entire world will hold its collective breath, waiting to see exactly which path the next leader chooses. Will Russia largely stay the same, maintaining its current course, just under a new name? Or would this sudden loss mark the dramatic beginning of a completely new, totally unpredictable era for global security? It's a question that could literally shape the next decade of our lives. What do you think would actually happen? Keep asking those tough questions, keep seeking out the context, and thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.